Okay guys, this is practical number 4, the thorax and coxal. This is probably one of the harder ones. And I say that because there's a lot on the scapula and the coxal bone that you need to know, but it's not hard, it's just a lot. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot. So let's get started with the easiest part, which is the sternum. So you're gonna wanna have, you're gonna wanna get a clavicle, a rib cage kind of with the sternum on it, a coxal bone, and a scapula. So those are the bones you need for this practical. So you're going to need to bring those up when you take the practical. So let's start with the sternum. From here, this little suture here to here, this is the body of the sternum. This part up here is going to be the manubrium. And down here, most of you probably already heard of the xiphoid process. That's this little guy down here. There are little notches up here that allow the articulation of the sternal end of the clavicle. So these are going to be the suprasternal notches, okay? Ribs, I don't know why I have it on here like this. You don't need to know the difference between a true rib and a false rib or a floating rib. You do need to know the things that are on the ribs. So let's start with the head of the rib. Where there's a head, there's always a neck. This little guy right here sticking out, that is the tubercle of the rib. Again, that is a bone marking as well. You can use this for your bone marking practical. There's lots of tubercles. That's the tubercle of the rib. This is where the rib is actually going to articulate with the thoracic vertebra, which we've already talked about if you've done the vertebral column. This is the body or shaft of the rib. And then when we get back to costal cartilage, that's going to be this stuff right here, okay? All right. The clavicle, really easy. And again, for this one, you might want to see how it articulates with the skeleton, okay? There's a little knobby end of the clavicle, so this one would be the sternal end of the clavicle, and then there's a flatter end here. This is going to articulate right here with the acromion process of the scapula. So we call this the acromion end of the clavicle. Okay, the scapula. So this one here is a left one, and I know that because I take it up here to the articulated skeleton, and it's going to look like this. So this is really important because if you have this by itself and you don't know how it articulates with the skeleton, you're going to have trouble with the vertebral and the acromial parts of the borders that you have to know. So let's talk first about the superior angle. Right here would be the superior angle. This guy right here is the acromion process. I just showed you that's where the acromial end of the clavicle articulates, and that's a lot of when we get shoulder separation. That's what happens. The clavicle comes away from this process. The coracoid process, I'm going to turn it so it looks, you're looking at the anterior side. This is the coracoid process. The axillary border, the superior border, the costal surface, the inferior angle, the vertebral border. Flipping it over to the back, this is the spine of the scapula. Again, you have spine on your bone marking, so you can use this too as a spine. The dorsal surface, the glenoid cavity right here. This is where the head of the humerus articulates. Then we have the fossa. I would look on the back for that, for the first two, the first and the third. This one is infra, underneath the spine, infraspinous fossa. Supraspinous fossa is up here above the spine. Then I'm going to flip over here, and this area, it's also the costal surface. This is the subscapular fossa. The last thing is the coxal bone. This is the harder part, and again, you need to see which one this is so that you can kind of see what posterior and superior are. This is actually going to be the left coxal bone. I know that because this guy is going to house the head of the femur. And I also know this is this posterior part of it, of the ilium. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay. We also need to find where the two coxal bones come together, right here. So you need to articulate whatever coxal bone you pick. You need to figure out, okay, where does it articulate on the skeleton so I know where posterior and anterior are. So let's start with the major bones. The ilium. This whole area that I have my hand on is the ilium. The ischium is the part where you sit. So this back posterior or lower part here, where I have my hand on, that is the ilium bone. No, it's not, it's the ischium, sorry. Where this bone meets the other coxal bone, what I'm holding on to here, that is the pubic bone. So there's actually 3 separate bones within this bone itself. The iliac crest is up here. Okay, I'm gonna go to this so I don't have to fool with it. This is the iliac crest. This is the right one, this is the left one, not that you need to know, but, okay. Spines. Okay, again, you need to know what anterior and posterior is. I'm holding the posterior part. This is the anterior part. So, this is the anterior superior spine. This is going to be the anterior inferior spine. Then I go to the back here, posterior. This is the posterior superior spine. And this is the posterior inferior spine. The arcuate line is this guy right here. Okay. The greater sciatic notch, this monster right here is the greater sciatic notch. Remember, this is the ischium back here. So this right here, this pointy guy, that's the spine of the ischium. Obturator foramen. Foraмен's a hole. There's only one hole on here. That's this guy. Ischial tuberosity. Back to the ischium again. This guy right here. This is what you're sitting on right now, if you're sitting. This is the ischial tuberosity. Pubic bone here. Pubic crest. Pubic symphysis is where it meets, so you can look here and see. This is the pubic symphysis. This is cartilage that actually is in between, that tough fibrocartilage in between the 2 pubic bones of each coxal. Okay, so the pubic symphysis on this guy would be right here. The acetabulum is this big, nice, smooth cup-like. This is going to house the head of the femur. The lesser sciatic notch isn't as prominent, but it should be right here. Not on this bone, it's not really that prominent, but it's right here. The iliac fossa, it's anterior, so you have to look at it from the anterior side. It's a nice deep fossa, and in women it's much deeper for obvious reasons. I hope it's obvious, but this is your iliac fossa. And that's it for the thorax and coxal.